Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Michigan here with another tier list for you. This time we're doing it for 2024. Now a quick caveat to this. The tier list I pulled this from did not have all the tanks, so I went through, cross-referenced this list against Tanks GG's, and created a bunch more icons with varying fonts because Microsoft Paint refused to work with me for half of them, so I gave up. If there's any tanks missing from here, please let me know, and I'll write a comment in the description with where I would put the tank and why. Now, the 5 options I've created here are best choice, good option, situational, last resort, and do not bring, as I have done in the past too. So, best choice, these are obviously the best tanks to bring on the largest amount of maps. Good options are tanks that also work and are usually the second best choice. Situational are tanks that may be awesome in a certain scenario. Last resort are usually sort of the backups, the bench warmers for all the 3 above options, and do not bring are tanks that really have no place in advances. Now, again, I feel like I need to state it if it isn't clear enough in the title. This tier list is for competitive play only. This is not for random battles. This is advances and clan wars. So, without further ado, let's just get started. It's going to be a little bit of a long video, so I'm going to try and blast through these as quickly as possible. 113, last resort. It's a fast heavy. Good alpha damage, good speed, good armor, but it falls short in every category behind some of its other competitors here. 121B, situational. This would have been last resort, however, I have been using it on Cliff instead of a Leopard, as it has great heat pen, 350, and can get in the fight and act as a semi-heavy if needed. 121, we're going to put in last resort, just not as good as the 121B. Might as well bring that, no need to bring the 121. 60 TP, we're going to put this as a good option, and the reason for that is it's very player dependent. It has great statistics, however it's very much lacking in its accuracy and its heat pen, which is only 317 millimeters. So in the hands of a great player, I would say this is a best choice, but in an average player, I would put it as a good option, as it can tend to be unreliable. So because of that, I'm going to keep it as good option. AMX 13105, don't bring this tank. There's no need for it. The 3-round autoloader is awesome in randoms, but it has no place in competitive play. AMX 30B, don't bring it. It has great DPM. I believe you can get it up to about 3,700, almost 4,000 if you have all that Bond equipment. It has no armor, and there's just plenty of other mediums that are better than it. AMX 50B, I'm going to put this as a situational vehicle. It would have been last resort before. It's super fast. It's got a good clip potential at 1600. The unload speed's a little low, and it really doesn't have any armor, but of course, if it's going to go 70 kilometers an hour, you're going to lose out on armor, obviously. So on some maps, this does work great. We've experimented with it here, there, and it can be a very good tank in the hands of a very good player. AMX M454. This tank has fallen by the wayside, unfortunately. This probably was in my best choice prior to the nerf, and even after that, it would have been a good option, but it's just fallen out of the meta. There just isn't really a place for a tank it's reasonably quick, it's got reasonable armor, but right now it's not in the meta, and it may come back up, and I don't fully understand why. I think the meta has just gotten faster, and this tank just hasn't been able to keep up, literally and figuratively. FV207 Badger, situational vehicle. We do use it on quite a few maps, however, if you're bringing a TD, there's this tank along with several others that we'll get into, so I'm going to put it in situational. We do use it on plenty of different maps, but it's not really an all-round tank that we bring that often. Artillery. Every single artillery we'll be going into do not bring. It is not in the meta right now, though the 261 actually is used on occasion, though we may decide to put that in last resort, but we'll see. Batchat 25T. This is a tough one. We're going to put it in do not bring this vehicle, and you're going to see here that a lot of the tanks are going to be towards the bottom. That's just how it goes when you have a very thin meta. No armor. It's got a great clip potential, I think 1800 or 1820. Maybe even as high as 1920. It's 390 times 5. Or 390 times 6. I'm not going to be doing that math in my head, but it doesn't have any armor, and it has a slow unload speed. Definitely would have been a best choice about 10 years ago, but fortunately not anymore. Centurion Action X, do not bring it. There's no place for this tank. It's got good turret armor, but it's not good against tier 10 heat. Chieftain, best choice. Now, I know that people do not like the Chieftain anymore, but again, this is my tier list. I still think this is a best-in-class heavy. We still use it. It's very user-friendly. It's very forgiving. It's got 10 degrees of gun impression, great APCR pen, and it has APCR as its premium rounds there. And it's just an all-around fantastic heavy. Say what you like about the Chieftain, I still think it's one of the best options. Conqueror GC, it's an artillery. We don't need it. El Haluf is out of the rotation. So, if it was in a rotation, we might put it in situational, but camping maps are few and far between. Now, actually, with the reintroduction of Ruinberg, we'll see how long that lasts. It may move up a little bit. E100, I'll put this as a situational vehicle. Most super heavies are situational. There's not a lot of maps where we bring super heavies. You know, you can say Ruinberg, Himmelsdorf, all of those, but, you know, unless we're bringing it on a lot of maps, which we're not, it's going to be a situational vehicle. E50M, last resort. It's got good accuracy. It's got decent armor. It could play the role of a 121B maybe, but, you know, the 121B is just going to do a lot of things better than the E50 in the roles that we need. EBR, best choice. You need an EBR on a lot of different maps. Almost every map you need EBR. It's the best scout in the game, period. Fastest tank. It doesn't have the greatest camo or the greatest gun, but the speed is all you need. There we go. Foch 155, do not bring it. It's just a Foch B that's more unreliable. This tank is known as the 750 DPM tank for a reason, because its accuracy isn't good, you miss 2 of your shots, and we really just don't need it. The Foch B will do everything better. So, Foch B, I'm going to put in last resort. Actually, I'm going to put this in do not bring for myself. Wherever we would be bringing a Foch B, we'd probably just bring a 50B instead. It's going to be a little more flexible. It has a turret, and yes, the Foch B has a higher output by 800 damage, but its reload is just going to kill it. And if anybody gets around behind it, forget it, it's not happening. It has a giant weak point on the top, so it really doesn't have any armor anyway, so you might as well just take a 50B. FE215B, no need to bring this thing. It's arguably the worst tier 10 in the game. I don't even know. It doesn't have any side armor, but has rear turret, so it can't even side scrape. Nothing to say there. 4005. In competitive play, you need to be reliable. The 4005 and its brother, the 183, are both unreliable. So we're just not going to bring those things at all. They may have a place in the future, but unreliable tanks do not make themselves anywhere higher than do not bring or last resort. Grill 15. We'll put this as last resort. It's one of the most accurate guns in the game. But it has no armor, so we really don't want to be bringing it, and actually we're just going to put it in do not bring. GWE100, no need for that tank. IS-7, good option. The main issue with the IS-7 is it's not as fast as some of its heavy counterparts, so if there's a race to a position, the IS-7 isn't always the best choice. However, the IS-7 does have the best armor out of its Russian heavy counterparts, so once it does get there, it performs quite well. The other issue with the IS-7, which is a blessing and a curse, is it has APCR as its premium rounds. Now, that means you're not going to have the same issues that Heat has, where, you know, it gets eaten by tracks and spaced armor, but you're only going to have 303 millimeters of penetration, which requires some very careful aiming. And in tight gunfights and dogfights, that can be difficult sometimes. And coupled with its fairly mediocre DPM, you really need to rely on its armor to make sure that it performs to the same level as its other tanks. JPE100. We're going to put this in last resort. And, you know, I could put it in situational because there is one specific area where we call for it. However, that's only one area, so I can't say it's a situational tank because we don't bring it all that often. And you know what? If we're going to put the 121B in that, we're going to have to put the Jagdpanzer E100 in that. I've got to stay consistent. So the JP, we bring it on Himmelsdorf when we spawn in the north, because it can go right through the Kapolev in E100, no problem, and all it really needs is 4 hits, that's it, 4 hits, and you have made yourself useful in that battle. So, it doesn't have the greatest armor, you know, you need to really angle it, those cheeks are pretty rough, but if you can make the JP work, it is an awesome vehicle. K91, don't bring it. It has great DPM, doesn't have any armor, and it's rear turreted, which makes it sort of awkward to work ridge lines. I believe it's the same thing I said before. I'd love to find a use for it, but just not the greatest tank. It's not super flexible. Kranwagen, do not bring. It's been, you know, we'll put it in last resort because it's still a hold down heavy. It's been nerfed. I actually have a video, it may be out before this, it may be out after it, where I played with Class Y and I had to play the Kranvagn the whole time because on that account in Class Y, that is the only tier 10 I have. You only need to go check out that video to highlight the inconsistencies and the struggle of playing the Kranvagn. It's wildly inaccurate, the reverse speed is terrible, and it has a 3-round autoloader, so up close and when you're really using all 12, it can be a great tank. But the heat pen and the accuracy just kill it. I mean, it's a very frustrating tank to play. Leopard, we're going to put this in situational. We still use the Leopard occasionally. It's sort of falling in favor of the 1-2-1P as the Leopard's sort of a one-trick pony, but in the hands of a really good player, the Leopard 1 can do wonders. Just let it run around the map, let the player figure out what needs to be done, and as you'll see in some of the videos, if you actually want to see what a Leopard's capable of, all you need to do is go check out the video I have from June 15th War Games, I believe is the title of the video, and you can watch I got the high ground now, just blitz around and kill everybody in his Leopard, and I think he does 10,000 damage at one point, so go check that out if you want to see why the Leopard really works. Patton, it's a great all-around tank, it's going to go in, do not bring, there's no real need for it, it's got a big cupola, it's an all-around medium tank, but the Russian mediums far outperform it. M60 goes in there for the same reason. It's a faster Patton, but we really don't need it. Manticore, situational tank. We do use it on Prokhorovka to keep the one line locked down, and we use it on our camp on the K line on Malinovka. So it's great. It doesn't have good DPM. It has the best camo in the game, though, so you can easily spot your enemy tanks coming and allow your team to be set up to shoot it. So, however, if the Manticore does get run out of there, or it does get spotted, very often it dies near instantly, so you gotta be careful of that. Mouse. I'm going to put this in last resort. I don't like the Mouse that much. I think it's very slow, and while it does have good armor, it makes it fairly inflexible. So on maps like Ruinberg or Ensk, you can get into those positions, but your cheeks are still pennable, and with only 490 alpha, and I understand the E100 only hits for 520, but the E100 is a little bit quicker, the Mouse is just going to struggle to rotate. The Object 140. This is a good option vehicle. Maybe even a... Yes, we'll put it in good option. When we need mediums, the 140 is pretty good, as well as the CS and some of its other mediums that we'll get into. We don't take them all that often, but it is a good medium to take once we need them. Object 260, best choice. Fastest heavy tank in the game, I believe. Might be tied with the 50B. Might be a little bit slower. But it's got good DPM, 440 alpha, which while you're not going to be trading very well, most of the time heavy tanks are just in dogfights. So being able to spread your damage around is going to be a lot more useful than hitting super hard on one target. So, and that sloped frontal plate, while it's not going to block everything because the lower plate's super weak, it doesn't have the worst armor in the world and can go hull down. Object 268. This is a last resort vehicle. Well, I used to like the 268. We're going to put it in Do Not Bring. Well, actually, we'll put it in last resort because there are a few instances where we have used it. This tank is decent. It has good DPM for a TD, and it has 395 heat pen, which means it's going to go through almost everything, and that penetration is only second to the Jagdpanzer E100 that we have in the situational column. The 268, sorry, I'm tripping over my own words here. The issue with the 268 is its shell speed at 840 meters per second for its heat rounds. It means that you can outrun the shell, basically, and it makes it a little bit difficult to aim, although the 268 does have 0.27 accuracy if you put an aiming device on it and you have a good crew. So it's great for breaking camps on Lakeville if the enemy team camp the north side, and it's also decent on Malinovka to support CSs if you decide to push across the field, if you've seen that. You can, if you want to see that strat, you can look up the CS 63 Rush on Malinovka. I think it has about 1.7k views, so it's actually one of my more watched videos, and you can see exactly what I'm talking about there. I don't actually know if the 268 is featured, but the 268 would be running with the CSs there. Object 268 version 4. Last resort. This tank is fallen by the wayside. It's not very accurate. It's got good armor. It's pretty fast, but the days of just sprinting down one side of the map are sort of over, and the version 4, unless you're in Clan Wars, it gives away your strategy pretty easily there, as it's a one-trick pony. Object 277. I'd say this is the best choice, and actually I think it's better than the IS-7. Of course, that's if your 277 has a better crew. tank for tank, as long as they're equal, and they have the same crew, same equipment, I believe the 277 is better. It's faster, it has better penetration, and you're just going to, because of that speed, you're going to get to those positions quicker along with the 260. And today, more than ever, speed is of the utmost importance. Object 279E, I'm going to put this in good option. Again, in the hands of a great player, it can work out awesome. Being able to ramp up to prevent your upper plate from being penned by high penetration heat rounds is awesome. But the gun has been nerfed. I believe it only has 310 pen, so it's a little rough to play and it's not that quick. So oftentimes when we're running 260s and 277s, you're not going to find the 279E. And actually, I'm going to put it in situational now, because again, it cannot keep up with the tanks here. Object 430, we're going to put this in last resort. You could run it in front instead of a 121B. I don't think the penetration is as good as the 121B. Somebody correct me there. But it just doesn't really have a place. It's sort of a halfway between a 140 and a 277. It doesn't really have, heavy mediums don't really have a place in today's meta. 705A, we're going to put this as situational. We used to use it on Himmelsdorf a lot. We don't use it so much anymore. We're trying to find a place for it. It's one of the best side scrapers in the game. It doesn't have any weak point on the front other than its lower plate. The issue with it, like the 60 TP, is it has bad heat pen, and it has terrible accuracy. 317 heat pen, and its accuracy is something like 0.38 base. So you're really going to have to be shooting from the same distance you could throw rocks, basically, to hit anything. And even then, with that accuracy, the heat tends to absorb into everything but the tank tracks, spaced armor, all sorts of stuff. So it can be quite tricky to play. Object 907, we're going to put this in good option as well. The 907 is used on some maps where we need mediums that can possibly contest with heavies. Think, I can't remember the map where we push mediums into the corner. It's escaping me, so apologize. Maybe somebody in the comments can fit. Westfield. There it is, Westfield. It's great to back up CSs. The CSs get their foot in the door, and the 907s can come through and sweep, so it's used there. Progetto, do not bring. They nerfed it for no reason. Auto reloaders are not really a team tank. There's too much of a tendency to just dump clip, and then your DPM is terrible. So it's not really a team vehicle. Doesn't have any armor. There's nothing really special about it. No need for it. Panzer 7. I don't care that they buffed it. It still do not bring. It still has the weak point, same as the VK, but it only hits for 560. And yes, while the penetration is good and the accuracy is good, if you're in a super heavy that has a glaring weak point on the side, which the VK does as well, you're going to get penned there. So if you're going to get penned, you need to be trading for higher than 560 alpha. Panzerwagon, don't bring it. It's got good DPM. I don't see a need for it. There was discussion about replacing one of the mana cores on Malinovka with a Rheinmetall Panzerwagon. I don't fully trust it. I'd have to see it done, and until then, I'm going to put it in Do Not Bring. XM551 Sheridan. Same as the Panzerwagon. I mean, it has no armor. It has a huge derp gun. You know, that's the only interesting thing about it, unless you want to run the 105. But if you're going to run that, you might as well run a T100, which is going to be in the same column anyway. ST2, this is a last resort vehicle. It can serve sort of as a 279E. It's got great hull armor. It's got the double guns. But I don't really see a place for it. It's not that quick. And, you know, maybe you could use it on the low side on cliff, somebody was mentioning to me, to hold back the enemy team. But until then, it's going to stay in last resort. STB1, we'll put this as situational. We use it on certain maps like Prokhorovka to take the hill. It's got that 14 degrees of gun depression, which is fantastic. Fantastic TPM. The shell speed's okay. The penetration, I believe, is okay. It may actually be like 340 heat on the STB. Somebody will have to tell me there. I don't have every statistic memorized. But we do use it on occasion, and when we do use it, it's quite successful, so we're going to keep it there. Object 261. We do use this on Prokhorovka when we camp on the right side there. So we'll put it in last resort just so we can have an artillery not in the last resort column. I'll go against my word from the beginning. The 261 is great when you can turn Prokhorovka into an east-west fight, because any tank that tries to get too close to the tracks is just going to get hit by this 261 repeatedly. And when you have your whole team staying safe behind the tracks, or supposed to be staying safe behind the tracks, it's nice to have a tank that can continuously do damage. Sturv, we'll put this as situational. We do use it on occasion. It's a decent vehicle, great DPM. Don't let enemies get too close to it because they'll overmatch your sides unless you're pointing directly at them. If they can see your side, they can pen it. But it does have the highest DPM in the game, I believe, or second highest, right behind the Badger. Super Conqueror, we're going to put this in last resort. Previously, it would have been a good option or possibly even best choice as it started to overshadow the Chieftain. However, with its nerf to its DPM, it doesn't really have any more DPM than a Chieftain. So, would you rather have a Chieftain or a Super Conqueror? To me, I'd rather have a Chieftain. Hits harder, basically the same DPM, and it's quicker. T100 LT. Do not bring. We don't need this light tank. The EBR does all the spotting we need, and if we're not using an EBR, we're using a Manticore. So, it's a good kind of pseudo light medium tank, but we really don't need that. So, no point there. E3, good option. When you need super heavy, you need E3. 750 alpha. Decent accuracy. They nerfed it. Doesn't matter. It's still the best in class tank. This tank can be used everywhere. Defenses, even offenses. You can't beat the E3. It's got, I think, 10 degrees of gun depression, and its cupola on top, unlike its brother, the E4, isn't really pennable by anything with less than 360 heat. So it's a great option. E4, do not bring for all the reasons I just mentioned. It doesn't have any armor, and it can go... Shells can go right through the cupola, so if you're shooting anything, they can see your cupola, they're going to pen it. So the fully traversable turret isn't needed, you might as well just bring a 60 TP. T110E5, I'm actually going to put this as a good option vehicle now. Its cupola isn't as easy to pen as you would think, it has better DPM than the Chieftain, and it's quite quick, so I'm starting to enjoy him. With the Super Conqueror nerf, it's really brought the E5 into the spotlight, so we're actually going to put it as a good option. T57 Heavy. Last resort. It does unload super quick. I believe it has the highest clip damage with the fastest amount of time, or the fastest damage per second while it's unloading of any of the tier 10 heavies. 2 seconds interclip for 1600. Remember that the 50B has 2.73 seconds interclip reload. But it doesn't have a lot of armor, and it's not really fast, so we just don't really need it. T62A. We're going to put it in last resort. It's just a bad 140. Actually... I'll put it in do not bring. It's just a bad 140. I mean, some people might disagree with me there. It doesn't have the same gun depression as the 140. I think it does have a little more camo, but, you know, until we see a lot of teams bringing it and using it, we're not going to really be messing with the thing. T92 HMC, largest gun in the game, and probably the most inaccurate in the game, actually right behind the Conqueror GC, so we don't need that tank. T95E6, last resort. Great DPM, huge cupola, no armor other than just where the gun is. It's pretty quick, though. I think it has 3100 DPM. It's a little bit better than a 30B. I'd say they're fairly similar, but, you know, with that giant cupola and the huge size of the tank, we don't really need it. TVP 5051. I'm going to put it in last resort. It's got an awesome clip, fastest or most damage while unloading of any of the tier 10 mediums. The problem is it only has 1800 health, so it's going to die really quick, and it has no armor. So we just don't really use it. Type 5 Heavy, do not bring. This is a credit and XP pinata. It has a lot of armor, but against tier 10 heat rounds, forget it. UDAS 1516, last resort. We actually experimented with this on Prokhorovka. The problem is that, again, like the Sturv, tanks will overmatch your side, so you have to be pointed directly at them. The heat rounds on it have good penetration, but I think they have like 800 shell velocity, so it's actually hard to hit anything at long range here. So, last resort, it works occasionally, but, oh, I wouldn't actually deal with it. Let's see. In true fashion, I screwed that up. I'm not sure what I hit, but we just finished with the Type 5 Heavy. VK7201K, situational, as is a lot of the other super heavies. 750 alpha, decent heat pen. It has terrible shell speed, but you should be shooting from fairly close, as it's a city map tank. So... And it's got a weak point, but it's fairly small, same as the Panzer 7s. Heat rounds will go through it. Enemy tanks that are looking for that spot will likely pen it. If you can cover it, if you can get hulled down, it's a great vehicle. WZ-111-5A, last resort. It's sort of it's a 277 that's a little slower and has some gun depression. Doesn't have the greatest armor in the game. And in today's meta, we really need to make sure that we have quick tanks. WZ-113 GFT, it's a tier 10 ISU 152. We don't need that. There's no purpose to that. We have E3s. WZ-132-1. It's sort of a pseudo medium light tank. Again, no point for that. We have CSs, which are coming up. We have EBRs. We have Manticores. Alright, on to the tanks that I had to add myself. And excuse all the crazy fonts here. I was trying to make them as visible as possible, as anything up here is kind of hard to read. 114 SP2. 650 Alpha. It doesn't really have a lot of armor. No need for it. 116 F3. Again, it's kind of a 114 SP2, but with an autoloader and a 5-second interclip reload. There's no need for that. If you need autoloaders, we have plenty of other options here. BZ-75. This is a situational tank. Great for going up hills. Anything where you need to get up there quickly, the BZ is awesome. It's great for shooting gaps, especially on maps like Cliff or on mines. So, love the tank. And with that, the BZ-72 won for all the same reasons as the BZ-75. They have minute differences, but essentially they're the same tank with the rocket boosters. VZ-55. I'll put it as situational. It's got a good interclip reload, I believe 3 seconds or 2.5 seconds with 490 each. The only issue is that then you're reloading for 20 seconds and it doesn't have as much HP and it's a little slower than 277. But it's great for trading one-on-one with enemy heavies. KPZ, good option tank, good accuracy, good armor. Surprisingly, one of the tanks I was wrong about. It only has 8 degrees of gun depression and only hits for 400, but that accuracy, that gun handling, makes it super nice for sniping enemy tanks long range, and I wish I had one. Lion, we'll put it as situational. I'm using it a little bit here and there. Having the 4 rounds is super nice for when you need to get in the fight, similar to the 121B. So we'll put it in situational there. Minotauro, we're going to put this in last resort. It's fallen out of favor. It's fairly slow. They've nerfed the armor a little bit so that now the cupola is pennable on the top. And we just don't use it mainly because of its speed, and we might as well just be using an E3, which we've sort of replaced a lot of those super heavy or alley tanks with. Rhinoceronte, don't bring it. There's more than enough evidence that everybody should know about the Rhino. It's got bad DPM unless, of course, you fire 1 shell at a time. Hori 3, situational tank. The AP pen makes it super nice for penning enemy turrets, especially on maps again like Prokhorovka, or any map where tanks may be pushing over a ridgeline. It's really accurate, and it has 650 alpha, or I think it's actually 700 alpha. So it's great for that, and it has good traverse speed. The armor is mediocre, but the whole point of this tank is to not get spotted in the first place. Type 71. This one kills me, but it's a last resort vehicle. The gun depression is awesome on it, especially when you get your hydropneumatic suspension going. The issue is it only hits for 400, and in close combat, your accuracy isn't super great, as well as your armor not being so hot either. So it's just not very flexible. It really relies on shooting at enemies from range, and you can't really count on that in most of our competitive battles. All right, coming down to the final 10 vehicles here, the Blitzalika thing. I'm going to put this in Do Not Bring. The reason for this is, and I haven't even tried it out to be honest, the problem with this tank is it relies on enemy tanks being close to it so that it can deal maximum damage. The issue with that is that it doesn't have any armor, so if tanks are close to it, it's just going to get penned and killed. If it had armor, I'd say, it would be fantastic. And if it hit for 800 from long range, I'd say it's also great. But it has to have both. It can't have one or the other. CS63, best choice. Love the CS63. We use this all over. Actually, we can't say it's super best choice. We'll put this as a good option. Nope, it's more used than the Object 14907. CSs are used everywhere. They're great for going up hills. They're good at semi-scouting. Just an awesome medium all the way around with its turbo mode. Again, you got to be in the hands of a reasonable player. It's very easy to drive and get out of control and flip yourself with that thing going 75 kilometers an hour. But it has great statistics, and we use it all the time. M5Y, do not bring it. It's the string bean. I think I'm going to say the exact same thing I said the last 2 videos. If you're pointing directly at the enemy, think Sturv and UDES 1516. Great. But your turret sides will get overmatched, and if you don't hold right click and keep your turret level with the ground, and you aim, let's say you aim your gun too far down, the back of the turret just swings all the way up, and you get shot from all over the place. I call it the string bean tank. So for that reason, because the turret looks like a string bean. The hull doesn't have any armor. It's got good gun depression, but again, you have to be pointing directly at your opponents. The top gun also only hits for 360, or the gun that you should be using hits for 360. And trading with heavy tanks, that doesn't work. Concept 5, don't bring it. It's terrible in randoms too. It has no armor. The gun doesn't hit for anything meaningful, and it just has awful camo. 215B183. We'll put this in. We'll put it in Last Resort just because it actually has some armor, unlike the 4005 Stage 2. It's super unreliable, but there may be places to use it, and I'm interested in experimenting with it in the future. IS-4, Last Resort, similar to the ST2, good armor, good DPM, low damage per shot, and low speed. So in today's meta, speed is the answer. Version 5, it's like a 277 that hits for 750 and then has none of the other advantages of the 277. It doesn't have any turret armor, and it is slow. So, and it doesn't have any hull armor either. So there's really no point in bringing this tank. 452k, situational. I actually use this on Redshire to play the area by the castle. The 7 degrees is perfect for it. It's super low profile, best turret armor in the game, believe it or not. And it's great there. It works out perfectly. And Object 780, we'll put this as Last Resort. Again, it's a little slower than the 277, hits a little harder, has a little more armor, but there really isn't a need for it. So, this is our tier list. You can see there's every single choice gets a little bit larger, from best choice to good option to situational to Last Resort to do not bring. A lot of tanks in the do not bring section. And again, just because I've put tanks in the Last Resort and do not bring doesn't mean they'll move. The meta changes all the time. So this has been a long enough video. I'm going to start tripping over my own words again. So thank you so much for watching. If you have any comments, please put them in the comment section. I'll respond to everything. If there's tanks I missed, please let me know, and I will make a comment under yours saying where I would put it and why. So again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.